Thank you, Sean. That was great. We've discussed yesterday how the strength of our association comes in part from the diversity of the members we have. By having people from all over the world, we get to learn about safety practices we wouldn't know, about techniques, technology, application that are different than ours, and the one that we see at home.
So before I introduce our last speaker, I have to say that I went to my new Scandinavian friends and asked how to pronounce the name. I practiced, but I was told to call you Mr. Yellow if I don't do it well. So, Mr. Geir Gule, is it close? Close? Thank you. So we will welcome Mr. Yellow, Mr. Geir Gule, to the stage. Geir has been in the scaffolding industry for 45 years and he has many roles. He is CEO of Christina Stilas AS. I forgot to ask how to pronounce this, so I'm sorry if I mispronounce. Christina Stilas AS is a scaffolding contractor in Oslo, Norway. And Geir is also president of SEF, the Norwegian Scaffolding Association, and he is president of the UEG, the European Scaffolding Association. So it's safe to say that Geir Gule knows scaffolding, and we welcome him to the stage to talk about it with us. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name, as she tried to say, is Geir Gule. Today, I would like to talk about the health and safety framework related to scaffolding within Europe. As she already mentioned about myself, I am a CEO. I've been in the scaffolding business for 45 years. Currently, I am CEO in Christiania Stilas, and part owner, a small scaffolding contractor in Oslo, Norway. I'm president, as she said, in SEF, the Norwegian Scaffolding Association, and also president in the European Scaffolding Association. I will talk a little bit about UEG. It is a German abbreviation, and the title is Union Europäische Gerüstbaubetriebe. If you translate that directly, it will be Union for Scaffolding Contractors. UEG was founded in Germany, therefore this German abbreviation and name. The idea of a European Scaffolding Association was born in March 2007. Associations from Poland, the Czech Republic, and Germany initiated a first conference in Prague to build up such an organization. Other organizations followed this vision, and in October 2008, at the second conference in Potsdam, Germany, the UEG was founded. The founding members of the UEG was the Czech Republic, Germany, United Kingdom, Poland, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Later, the following countries also joined: Norway, Finland, Sweden, Luxembourg, and France. In addition to these full members, UEG has also been in dialogue with associations from Greece, the Baltic countries, Denmark, and Turkey. So we hope we will have some of them join us soon. Later, UEG wanted to include other players from the scaffolding industry, so it was decided to include producer and others with connection to the scaffolding industry. Associated members do not have any voting rights, but can participate in all discussions in the UEG. And these are the associated members today. There are 14 of them altogether today, and some of them also are present at this convention. There are mostly producers of system scaffold, but also some other producing sheeting for scaffolding and things like that also. The goals of the UEG is to influence legislative development in the EU, develop comparison of standards in the field engineering, training, health and safety, harmonize European scaffolding standards, and let the scaffolding industry become a big part of Europe. A little bit from the articles of association. The Union der Europäischen Gerüstbaubetriebe is founded for the purpose of a common representation of interest of the scaffolding industry at European level. In response to this, the single members seek the formation of a single will based on common interests of the members and to act in the spirit of cooperation. National traditions and distinction should be appropriately considered. This is the organization chart of the ULG, the General Assembly made up our full members, the chair with 1 president and 2 vice president, and finally our 3 working groups, economy and law, European regulation, and engineering. It is now tradition to have our General Assemblies in the different member countries, which with wives or partners. We are now usually between 40 and 50 persons at the General Assemblies, and this is from the General Assembly in Lucerne, Switzerland in 2012. And here we have from Oslo, Norway in 2013, and we've been to Krakow in Poland in 2016. We also try to hold some of our other meetings in member countries. This is from a chair meeting in London in 2014. And this is a membership meeting in Dortmund, Germany, at a training center, and also from a training center in London. So a little bit about how the work in the ULG is organized. All work in the ULG is voluntary and is carried out by members from the National Association or from the associated members. The only exception is our Secretary General, who is employed in full time. A little bit about the project we are involved in. After a period of mapping the different legislations, regulations, and variation in the member countries, ULG was able to make a practical guideline for scaffolders with focus on best practice, but also highlighting the differences in the member countries. The scope of this guideline shall apply to the assembly, alteration, dismantling, and use of working and protective scaffolds. The guide provides information to be considered during risk assessment. The guide shall not apply to falsework, horizontally movable platforms, including mobile access towers, encapsulation construction, and similar design types, such as suspended and cantilevered scaffolds. This is a list of the different types of scaffold which we operate within in Europe, but as I mentioned, not all of these are a part of this practical guideline. In the guideline, we also have compared the legislation, provision, and standards guidelines from the member countries. Although all countries and scaffolders in Europe are bound by the same directive, and this is the directive, we usually call this the Work at Height Directive. And this is, as the last sentence says, on the introduction of measures to encourage improvements in the safety and health of workers at work. That means the professional market. A little about the provisions concerning the use of work equipment provided for temporary work at height. Collective protection measures must be given priority over personal protection measures. And here you can see some examples of this collective protection measure can be used when erecting scaffold. We call these advanced guardrail systems, and many companies are developing various products and methods of assembly to ensure scaffolds remain safely behind the guardrail whilst erecting and dismantling scaffold. This principle has been developed to work with both modular system scaffolds and traditional tubes and fitting scaffolds. Several European countries have now included these kind of collective measures into their regulations. Specific provision regarding the use of scaffolding from this same directive. When a note of the calculations for the scaffold selected is not available, or the note does not cover the structural arrangements Contemplated strength and stability calculation must be carried out unless the scaffold is assembled in conformity with a general recognized standard configuration. This means that if the scaffold is not assembled according to the manual from the producer, it has to be calculated and plans have to be drawn up. Depending on the complexity of the scaffold chosen, an assembly, use, and dismantling plan must be drawn up by a competent person. This may be in the form of a standard plan, supplemented by items relating to specific details of the scaffolding in question. This is what needs to be included in this plan. Although the text in the directive is quite specific, there are still differences in interpretation of the directive in different countries. This leads to differences in legislation and makes the work we strive to do in the ULG somewhat complicated. Our goal is, of course, that we in the ULG can agree on one interpretation and then put pressure on the legislative bodies in the member countries to get one set of common legislations for all countries. After we finished the work on our first guidance, we continued our focus on safety and started work on a guideline for risk assessment. The scope of this guideline is intended for employers, contractors, and persons who are responsible for carrying out the risk assessment, and for employees who are involved in the erection, alteration, and dismantling of working and protective scaffolds. Information on the regulation to be observed during the risk assessment for these areas can be found in the respective laws and regulation of the individual member countries. Most European countries have regulation regarding risk assessment now. The guideline was developed by the ULG using the following principles. Hazards and risk are not synonymous. Where hazard exists, risk exists. Risk is a function of the severity of harm and the likelihood of the occurrence of that harm. Where hazards are eliminated, risk is eliminated, and when hazards exist, risk controls are required. The guideline focuses on identification of hazards and the risk factors that can contribute to the occurrence of injury or illness, assessment of risk and contributing factors, and determination of means to eliminate hazards and effectively control risk associated with hazard that cannot be eliminated. Risk assessment attempts to answer the following fundamental questions. What can happen under what circumstance? What are the possible consequences? How likely are the possible consequences to occur? Has an effective level of risk reduction been achieved, or is further risk reduction required? It should also be considered that there are many additional and supplementary provisions in the different member countries. And now a little bit about our latest project, developing a minimum standard for scaffold inspection across Europe. Within the ULG, we look to share best practice and support all members with the aim of improving standards for all. We looked at existing current practices in member countries relating to scaffolder competency and soon realized there were a lot of differences. Different legislation, regulation, and best practice. Different equipment, tubes and fittings in some company, modular systems, lots of different brands and of systems, frame, scaffold, etc. Different training and competence requirements, ranging from no formal training in some countries to 1 to 2 days to up to 2 years training. We realized it would be very difficult to establish a common standard for scaffolder training, which could be easily adopted by all members based upon how widely the current differed. We did, however, feel that the basic principle for scaffold inspection should be the same for all, irrelevantly of country or products used with scaffolds built according to regulation, manuals, and calculation. At SUST, we started work on a training scheme for scaffolding inspectors. When starting the work for the ULG scaffolding inspection project, we sought help of our UK partners, as they already have a long-established and recognized training scheme in place. Scissors, the construction industry scaffolders record scheme, is operated on a non-profit basis. It is managed by NACS, the National Access and Scaffolding Confederation, on behalf of and for the benefit of the whole UK scaffolding sector and the wider industry. The scheme was established over 50 years ago with the support of the Industry Training Board, NACS, and the unions. It is the industry-recognized scheme for the scaffolding sector. Initially developed for tubes and fitting, it now incorporates modular system scaffolds. It has a suite of programs ranging from general awareness, scaffolding laborers, apprentices, scaffolders and advanced scaffolders, plus scaffold inspection and supervisory and management training. Since 2014, it has also been operated Scissors OSTS, Overseas Scaffolding Training Scheme, and has provided providers in many countries outside the UK. Using the scissors as a template allows us to work much faster than if we should have created everything from scratch. We already have an extensive list of contents and criteria which we can choose to adapt or alter to suit the ULG requirements. We are envisaging a project to take about 12 to 18 months to finish. The training will be through a certified program according to recognized standard, so that we are sure that the training will be the same in all member countries. Training centers can be established in all member countries as long as they are audited and approved by the ULG. As mentioned before, this is a work in progress, so nothing is yet completed, but as far as the work has proceeded, we will probably have 2 levels of inspection. The first level, inspection training for scaffolds according to standard configuration. The overall aim is to develop an understanding of scaffold components, forms of construction, and inspection procedures for standard configuration of access scaffold and to comply with current legislation and codes of practice. The course will give delegates an understanding of scaffold components, stability, health and safety, occupational safety, work at height directive, regulations and approved codes of practice, scaffold terminology, scaffold materials, means of access and egress, scaffold ties, industry performance standards, design appreciation, role of an inspector, practical inspection, reports and barriers and signs. The second level, ULG Advanced Scaffolding Inspection Training. ULG Advanced Scaffold Inspection Training will cover complex scaffold structures. It is aimed at professional scaffold inspectors, scaffolding supervisors and managers, and others who are responsible for the inspection of complex scaffolding structures and the completion of an inspection report in accordance with Work at Height Directive. The overall aim is for delegates to gain an understanding of the appropriate safety and statutory regulations and the ability to interpret design drawings and specifications when inspecting complex design scaffolding structures for faults. Delegates will also be able to inspect and record the findings of such an inspection for a complex design scaffold, two-way shore, raking shore, dead shore, slung scaffold, staircase scaffold, temporary roofs, truss outs, temporary ramps, cantilever drop. This was a little bit of the work we do in-house in the ULG. This is what we try to reflect in the work we do in the UG with our guidelines and our other engagements. The scaffolding industry is all about health and safety for the scaffolders, for the end users, for the client, for the public, and all other stakeholders in the industry. However, it is one additional factor that is very important for the whole scaffolding industry, framework in which we are regulated. All of this set the boundaries for the work we are doing as an industry. It is therefore important that we can influence this framework. As a relatively young association, and still quite small in the European perspective, ULG has become a member of some other European associations who can help us influence the above mentioned framework, as stated earlier in the goals of the ULG. And although there are some large companies in the ULG, that is mostly some of the producers, associated members, the association is predominantly made up of small and medium-sized enterprises. ULG is a member of SME United, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. SME United has three main tasks in giving SMEs a voice at European level: representing the interest of SMEs to the European institution, other stakeholders, and in the social dialogue, networking and capacity building, and projects. SME United, formerly known as UAPME, is the Association of Craft and SMEs in Europe, with around 70 member organizations from over 30 European countries. SME United is a recognized employers organization and European social partner, and acts on behalf of crafts and SMEs in Europe, European social dialogue, and in discussion with the EU institutions. SME United represents national cross-sectoral craft and SME Federation, European SME branch organization, and associated members. SME United speaks on behalf of 22.5 million SMEs in Europe, which employ almost 82.4 million people. It is a non-profit seeking and non-partisan organization. SMEs in Europe account for 99.8% of all enterprises, 2/3 of employment, and close to 53% of the added value created in the European Union. These enterprises play a decisive role in Europe's economy and society, are drivers for innovation, and ensure social and regional stability. In addition, UEG is a member of SBS, Small Business Standards, and both these organizations have their offices in Brussels, Belgium. Small Business Standards is a European non-profit association co-financed by the European Union and EFTA member states. Its goal is to represent and defend small and medium-sized enterprises' interests in the standardization process at European and international level. Moreover, it aims at raising the awareness of SMEs about the benefit of standard and encourage them to get involved in the standardization process. SBS was established to meet the European Union's aspiration to make the standardization system as inclusive, transparent, and open as possible, in line with Regulation 1025 of 2012 of the European Standardization System. This association represents the interest of 12 million SMEs through 25 SME member organizations. One of the most important activities of SBS is its direct participation in the standardization process in CEN, CENELEC, ETSI, and ISO technical committees. SBS carries out this task by appointing experts nominated by organizations representing SMEs to the committee meetings. Approximately 60 experts are selected every year, especially for their expertise and awareness of SMEs' stakeholders' interests. As a result, SBS is present in several technical committees and working groups, hence representing a large number of sectors in which standards are crucial for SMEs. The sectors encompass a wide variety of economic activities ranging from tourism to information and communication technologies, from textile and footwear to cosmetics, and from pyrotechnics to machinery. The work of the technical committees also enables monitoring of the emergence of new directives, standardization work in general, and to defend among institutional actors position of SMEs and encourage them to integrate more fully into the development of standards. UEG has 2 paid experts from SBS representing the association in the standardization work. This brings us over to CEN, the European Committee for Standardization. This is probably the most important arena for the UEG is involved into an influence on the framework for scaffolding industry in Europe. There are European standards for almost everything, from space rockets to the size of paper sheets. Standards are important supplement and help for the construction industry and for producers, the suppliers, to this industry. CEN is the European standardization body, and all European countries participate in the work in CEN. Every country has a national standardization body. CEN is made up of technical committees for the different interests. Within the technical committees, there can be many working groups dealing with specific standards. After the proposal for a new standard or revision of one is agreed upon in the working groups and the technical committee, it is sent to the CEN for approval and a formal check. When approved from CEN, it is sent to each country for voting. And all work in the technical committees and working groups is based on consensus. And when the voting is done in every country, it's weighted according to how many residents is in the different countries. The national standardization bodies set up mirror committees for the different interests, mirroring the proceedings in the technical committees and working groups in CEN. The National Mirror Committee and national standardization bodies select experts to represent the national standardization body in the technical committees and working groups. The scaffolding in this industry is represented in the TC53, Temporary Works Equipment, which develops and maintains many European standards for producing scaffolding products. Most of the experts representing the national associations in the UG are also representatives for their countries in CEN in the TC53 and working groups. And there are one working group for each specific standard. In addition, UEG have 2 experts from SBS participating in TC53 and the working groups. The SBS experts have no voting rights in the standardization work, but can participate in all discussions. Usually it's big companies and major producers who participate in standardization work. They have experts and they have the resources. UEGs, having members from 10 countries in Europe, usually have the majority of experts representing both their countries, but also representing UEG in the TC53 and the working groups. There are seldom more than 10 countries represented in the working groups. Since UEG mainly represents scaffolding contractors in Europe, which most of them are SMEs, we have a great possibility to influence the standardization work in Europe. And this is just a list of the different standards that are regarding scaffolding products which we have in Europe. There's quite a lot of them, and we are doing now a new project, trying to simplify it a little bit than how it is today. There is quite a lot of them. I don't know too much about the scaffolding industry in the United States, but I'm sure that the focus on health and safety is as important to those working here as it is to us working in Europe. By working together and learning from each other, we can create a safe and healthy workplace for all working within the scaffolding sector. When I was in the Maldives a few years ago, I came across these scaffolders. I'm quite sure they have a total different approach to the health and safety than we have in both our continents. I'm not sure which I would prefer, although it is clear some still have more to learn than others when it comes to health and safety. And with that, I will conclude my presentation, and thank you for your kind attention.